This is People of the State of Michigan versus Amy Jo Bralett. Back on March 2nd of this year, the defendant in 7402 pled to larceny $1,000 to $20,000 and possession of, illegal possession and use of financial transaction device. In 7407, the defendant pled no contest to larceny $1,000 to $20,000. Mr. Rudy, anything you'd like to say on behalf of your client before the court imposes sentence?
Yes, Your Honor. My client's 54 years old now. She's on disability due to some physical ailments that were listed in the PSI. She also has some mental health issues that are also listed. The fact that she had a suicide attempt right around the same time. Keeping in mind the fact that these are property crimes and total damages, while still significant, are way less than what she had prior to the incident. Quite a bit less.
Morning. I'd like to apologize to my children. I had higher expectations for myself. Losing my dad unexpectedly in August of 24 and not being able to say goodbye was extremely tough. As I look forward to going home and helping my mother, she tells me she only has 3 to 6 months to live. And in that 6 months, on January 25th, 2026, she passed away. Your Honor, I spent 64 nights with my mother as her caregiver first and a daughter second. It was a battle of tough love between her dementia, hallucinations, medications, personal care, and repetitive conversations multiple times a day. It was mentally exhausting. In November, I asked my youngest sister for help, as she is the administrator of our parents' estate. She refused to accommodate me, told me it wasn't possible, when in fact her Black Friday shopping was priority. I cried almost every day. I thought my mom was too stubborn to die, but watching her decline before my eyes was the absolute worst punishment ever. I missed both of my parents' funerals. My oldest son is getting married next year. I need a right hip replacement and my knee is messed up. I can barely stand or walk. My PO kept telling me to take care of myself, but it was kind of hard when I was the only one there. I had 2 other sisters who refused to step up to help me until they were given no choice when I left my mom's house on December 17th, which was the last day I saw my mom. We all know I'm far from perfect, Your Honor. I just needed a mental break in November to reset myself. This wasn't what I had in mind. I just wanted more time with my mom. A daughter without her mother is a woman broken. It is a loss that turns to arthritis and settles deep in your bones. This I now know. My mom was my worst enemy, but my biggest supporter. And not being able to say goodbye to her and my dad because of my own actions is just cruel. I'm suffering every day. Every time I look at my mom's obituary, I just can't believe that she's gone. Her cancer, she had bone cancer, was horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. And Your Honor, I know that the court wants to throw the book at me, and I probably deserve it. But I feel I've already had the worst punishment a daughter could get, and that was losing both my parents and not being able to grieve them properly.
Cool. Mr. Rutkowski, on behalf of the people, this is a victim's rights case.
It is a victim's rights case. We ask you to take into account the victim's impact statement included in the pre-sentence. Without going into detail on that, the court's read the pre-sentence reports. You've seen that. We've talked about this case in the office. It's very sad. The circumstance that Ms. Brawlett brings up, it's true. But the recommendations are based, I believe, in fact, on the fact that the last time that we were here, and mind you, Ms. Brawlett has 9 prior felonies and 4 prior misdemeanors, but one of them involves taking money from her mother. And then we get to this case where her mother, when she gets out of prison, her mother wanted to see her again and to interact with her. Ms. Brawlett described her interactions with her mom. The fact is, though, that she'd taken her mom's debit card and used it at these 2 different places to the tune of the amount that the court has in front of it. And when you victimize somebody once and then you victimize them again, and she knew her mother's circumstance, I think that's why, and we would ask to adopt the recommendations because it is at the high end of the guidelines, but I believe the circumstances of what Ms. Brawlett did, just getting out on parole, it's the same thing. It is worse because she knew her mother was dying as it is, and then she uses this debit card from her mom to not just use it once, not use it twice, but use it multiple times at 2 different locations. That's why we have the 2 separate files, Your Honor. As far as the credit, there is no credit because she's on parole, but the dead time that she's serving is going to go towards her parole violation. And so it's not going to be that she's not going to get any credit for it. It's just she's going to get it on her parole, not on this file.
It's difficult when you lose a parent or lose parents. And certainly Ms. Brawlett experienced that not too long ago. And the last time Ms. Brawlett was here, yes, a prison sentence was imposed, but the idea was learn from that experience and don't repeat behavior. And the court understands there's some mental health considerations as well, and the court has considered those, but at the end of the day, Ms. Brawlett was on parole while her mom was in hospice care. She took her mom's card, purchased iPhone, iPad, a laptop, and then gambling on FanDuel, over $11,000 charged on the card. And, maybe there's addictions relative to gambling because that's certainly difficult once you get into that. But having the love of your parents, your mom who's dying, but then to take her card and do what you did, Ms. Brawlett, is sadly unacceptable.
Your Honor.
You've had the opportunity, Ms. Brawlett. You've had the opportunity to speak. That's what I read in the pre-sentence.
I had no help. I couldn't leave her there by herself. I was the only one there for 64 nights.
So what gave you the right to take the card and use it? How does that correlate? It doesn't.
I had no right.
That's the point.
And I take full responsibility.
And the court
But
appreciates
who was
that.
there to help me? Nobody. And it's not about me. I'm not saying it's about me. I had stuff I was dealing with too, but nobody stepped up to the plate. What was I supposed to do? I did what I did to get out of the situation, so my other sisters had to step up.
How does that help with gambling?
I wanted to pay off my debts. I was alone and I'm still alone.
It will be the sentence of this court through 7402 FH for count 1. Defendant is committed to the Michigan Corrections Commission, placed in their custody for 48 months, 30 years, credit for no time served, $130 crime victims assessment will be ordered. Attorney fees are waived in all files. $68 in state costs will be ordered. June 22nd, due date 2026. Count 2, financial transaction device will be the sentence of this court. Defendant be committed to the Michigan Corrections Commission and placed in their custody.
The sentencing hearing for people of the state of Michigan versus Amy Jo Burlett was convened before the court to address two separate case files. In case number 7402, the defendant had pleaded guilty on March 2nd of that year to two charges: larceny in the amount of $1,000 to $20,000 and illegal possession and use of a financial transaction device. In case number 7407, the defendant had entered a no contest plea to a separate charge of larceny in the amount of $1,000 to $20,000, with the pleas already entered and the presentence. Investigation report reviewed by all parties. The judge opened the hearing by inviting the defense attorney, Mr. Rooney, to address the court on behalf of his client before sentencing was imposed. Defense attorney Mr. Rooney kept his remarks brief, but focused on the mitigating factors in Amy Burlett's life at the time of the offenses. He noted that Burlett was 54 years old and on disability, with a range of physical ailments documented in the presentence investigation report. He also highlighted that she had ongoing health issues and drew the court's attention to the fact that around the same period as the offenses, she had made a suicide attempt, a detail the defense offered as context for the state of mind she had been in. Rooney also made a point about the nature of the crimes themselves, noting that these were property offenses and that while the total damages were still significant, they were considerably less than what had been involved in her prior criminal history. The defense's implicit ask was that the court weigh these factors when considering the appropriate length of sentence. When the judge gave Amy Burlett the opportunity to speak directly to the court, she delivered a lengthy and deeply emotional statement that moved through grief, regret, physical pain, family conflict, and a direct plea for leniency. She began by apologizing to her children, telling them she had held higher expectations of herself. She then described the series of personal losses that had formed the backdrop to her crimes. She explained that she had lost her father unexpectedly in August of 2024 and had not been able to say goodbye to him. Shortly after, she had returned home with the hope of spending time with her mother, only to be told that her mother had 3 to 6 months left to live. By January 25, 2026, her mother had passed away, having been diagnosed with bone cancer that Burlett described as absolutely horrendous. Burlett told the court that she had spent 64 consecutive nights with her mother acting as her primary caregiver, putting her role as a daughter second to the demands of that caregiving. She described the experience in vivid and painful terms, managing her mother's dementia, her hallucinations, her medications, her personal care needs, and repetitive conversations that happened multiple times every single day. She said it was mentally exhausting beyond what she had words to fully describe. In November, she said she reached out to her youngest sister, who was serving as the administrator of their parents' estate, and asked for help. That sister refused, telling her it was not possible, even though, as Burlett bitterly noted, the sister's Black Friday shopping had apparently taken priority. She described crying almost every day during that period and said that watching her mother decline before her eyes was the worst punishment she had ever experienced in her life. Burlett also described her own physical condition during this time, telling the court she needed a hip replacement and that her knee was in poor condition, making it difficult for her to stand or walk for extended periods. She said her probation officer had repeatedly told her to take care of herself, but that was nearly impossible when she felt she was the only one there for her mother. She mentioned 2 other sisters who had refused to step up and help until they had no choice, which came when Burlett finally left her mother's house on December 17th, the last day she ever saw her alive. She framed her departure not as abandonment, but as a necessary breaking point after months of being alone in an impossible situation. She acknowledged that what she had done was far from what she had in mind when she needed a mental break, and she accepted that she was far from perfect. The most emotionally charged moment of Burlett's statement came when she spoke about the loss of both her parents and what it meant to her on a personal level. Her voice broke as she told the court that a daughter without her mother is a woman broken, and that the grief was a loss that turns to arthritis and settles deep in the bones. She described her mother as her worst enemy, but also her biggest supporter, and said that not being able to say goodbye to either of her parents because of her own actions was something she considered a cruel punishment in itself. She told the judge she was suffering every day, that she could not believe her mother was gone, and that the bone cancer her mother endured had been absolutely horrendous to witness. She closed her statement by acknowledging that the court probably wanted to throw the book at her, and that she probably deserved it. But she asked the judge to consider that she felt she had already experienced the worst punishment a daughter could receive, which was losing both of her parents and not being able to grieve them properly or say a proper goodbye. The prosecutor, Mr. Rowski, then addressed the court on behalf of the people. He began by asking the court to take into account the victim impact statement that had been included in the presentence investigation report.